Welcome back to the SHW Off-Road Daily Drop. If you've been here before, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again. If this is your first time, welcome to the channel. We do this every single day, so tune in, like, subscribe, so you're notified when we do this. Usually I try to do them every day around 1 o'clock. So thanks for tuning in. Today we're talking about some of the golden nuggets, some of the quick tips of your first time going out west. Things you should know, things maybe I didn't know the first time I went out, or I see people constantly just forgetting or not considering when they go out there and they get in trouble and just doesn't go well. So it's a quick list. We're going to do rapid fire. If you have anything to add to this list, make sure you let us know at the end. But number one on my list, burn bans. Burn bans are everywhere out west, usually year round. You have to be diligent keeping up with it. And honestly, if you want to consistently have a fire or have the ambiance of a fire when you're going out west, I would consider carrying like a propane fire pit or some other source for just to have, you know, a heated fire at camp, right? So you cannot have year-round in a lot of places, or close to year-round, you know, when we're talking about camping season and stuff. A lot of these places, again, you cannot have an open flame. So, but you can, and a lot of them have like fire pits or like the ammo can fire pits. I don't know if you've ever seen these. I'm gonna do a quick kind of detour here to show you these, but I really like them because they travel well and they work well to just to have a flame at camp, to whether you're cooking on it or you're just like sitting around a fire and stuff like that. But this is a cool solution because what it is an old ammo can, and then they put little lava rocks in it, and you hook up a propane tank and you get a fire. And it's really, really cool, right? So it's super, super portable. It's pretty affordable. You can DIY this if it ever loads. You can DIY it. I find though that DIYing these things usually isn't that much cheaper than just buying the pre-made one, right? So there's all kinds of them out there, usually like 170 to 250 bucks. They pack down really well and they give you a flame. And like I said, usually you can use these even in areas with a burn ban, but make sure you do your research when you go out, okay? Make sure you do your research, know when and where there's burn bans. The easiest way to figure out if there's a burn ban is to just talk to the officials in the area, right? All these park rangers and ranger stations and stuff like that, they all know, and they all are up to date constantly on where burn bans are. But also just read the literature, right? All those signs that you usually pass with rules and regulations for the area, stop and read them. They'll tell you what you can and can't do. But number one, burn bans. They happen constantly all over the place out west. Make sure you know how to handle it and follow them, right? It's a big deal. If you don't, you can cause serious damage. Number two, pack it in and pack it out. A lot of people don't realize you can't go poop in the wild in a lot of these places out west. You got to pack it in and you got to pack it out. So you need to have, I mean, it's like mandatory to have a portable toilet or some way to collect waste when you're out in the backcountry. It's not everywhere out west, but it happens quite a bit in Utah and stuff like that. So make sure you have a way. You cannot just dig a hole and go to the bathroom in some of these places out west. So be prepared. Have some way to collect solid waste when you're out. And that just goes, that's also kind of something to consider. Just make sure you have a way to collect garbage in general. Okay, everything you pack in, you got to pack out. Number three, the desert gets cold. Depending on the season, it gets really cold at night in the desert. There can be snow well into some of the kind of early summer months or spring months and stuff like that. So be prepared. I see a ton of people go out to Utah and all they pack is shorts and a t-shirt and, you know, a 60-degree bag, sleeping bag. So be prepared. Make sure you take clothes that work well, and make sure you're kind of diverse in what you pack depending on the season, right? So research the seasons, know when it's going to be cold, even in places like Arizona and Utah, and the desert at night in Nevada. Okay. Number four, water is precious. Make sure that you're packing enough water for whatever environment you're going to be in. If you're going to be hiking through parts of Moab in the dead of summer, you need to have at least 2 gallons of water per person per day. Okay, so be prepared. Make sure you have water, a way to carry it, a place to store it. space is precious in your vehicle. So make sure you're prepared with tons of fluids and water. I don't know what number this is, but number 5, there is a ton of dispersed camping around a lot of the national parks out there or state parks. You just have to look for them. You don't always have to pay to stay in the parks or in the campgrounds around parks. Honestly, they're some of the worst. Usually they're very, very crowded. But if you're willing to just go another 20 minutes, 25 minutes out of your way, you can find some great dispersed camping outside of some of these areas. Usually the rougher the road and the more technical the trail, the easier it is going to be to get away from the van lifers and RVers and stuff. But there's plenty of dispersed camping out there. So do your research, check out roads, be brave, don't be afraid to take some risks. Usually you can find a place to stay if you strike out on dispersed camping. You can find a place open somewhere. Usually, it's not always the case, but try to disperse camp if you haven't before. It's a great opportunity to, like I said, challenge yourself and find some of the best camping you will ever be in. You just have to be willing to take the risk. There's a little bit of risk there, but also invest the time, because the last thing you want to do after spending 12 hours on the road is hunt for a campsite, but it's worth it. And maybe strategically plan around that, right? So if you're going to have a heavy road day, yeah, have a reservation, stay at a campground. But the next day when you're kind of piddling around, going park to park in the area, that's a great time to invest some time in to find a great dispersed campsite. There's plenty of them out there. Last but not least, some campgrounds, if you're going to stay in them, I often stay at least in a couple campgrounds on a trip, especially if we're visiting parks. Some campgrounds only allow hardside camping. When we're talking Montana and stuff, and I think maybe even Wyoming and stuff. You can only have hard camping in certain parts of these parks or in some of these campgrounds. So be prepared. Make sure you plan ahead, read the rules. They will not let you go to some of these campgrounds in a soft-sided sleep situation if it requires hard-sided. So be prepared for that as well. Something I want to throw in before I kind of let this one go. Consider really heavily whether it makes sense to stay in a park and a campground versus dispersed camping, right? There are some situations where it's going to be greatly to your advantage, even though it might be crowded and loud, to stay at a campground in a park, right? So if you're trying to hit really popular trails in Glacier National Park and parking lots fill up at 6:30 a.m., you're going to have a lot easier time getting a spot if you've stayed 3 minutes from the trail versus 25, 30, 40 minutes. So be prepared there, and do research on camping out there. But those are some of my top tips, some of the biggest lessons I've learned, and some of the biggest lessons I've seen other people learn going out west for the first time. If you have something to add, let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about seat deletes, pros and cons of them, why perhaps they're limited in their functionality, and how to get around that. So join me tomorrow. We're going to talk all about seat deletes. Thanks for watching today. And as always, we'll see you next time. All right, bye-bye.